So, good afternoon, everybody, and thank you so much for joining me. I'm Vic, and I am one of the careers consultants at the University of Manchester Career Service. So, I will be sharing my slides. So, I'm just going to share my screen, and then we can get started. So today's session is part of Final Year Future Week, and this is on non-linear careers, the new normal. As I said just before we started, if you could please make sure that you register your attendance today, so we're able to send you follow-up materials and information from the Career Service. You can use the QR code that's there or the hyperlink that's put on the slide and in the chat function. You can register your attendance at any point during the session today, just as long as it's before we finish it. So by the end of this session, you will know what non-linear careers are and how you can create one. You will have reflected on what you actually want out of your career, because that's a really important thing to consider. And you will, most hopefully, understand the concept of career management. You will need either a Word document open or some paper and a pen, just so that you can make your own notes, because this is an interactive session, but not one where I'll be expecting you to share. This is for your own benefit, but there will be some tasks to complete. The other thing that you will need is a willingness to be honest with yourself. Again, as I said, I won't be asking you to share things with the group or with me, even if you don't want to. But it's really important that you approach this with a willingness to just be honest and true to what you think and feel about yourself. Okay, so I've got two images here for you. One of them is a ladder and one of them is some scaffolding. And the point here is the idea of a perfect career and the idea of the career ladder is outdated. It's been replaced with something a lot more like scaffolding. So you don't need to pick a career, start at the bottom and move up it in that kind of old-fashioned linear way where you get promotions and then you reach the top and then you retire. It just doesn't work like that anymore. Careers are much more like scaffolding. So you can move up and down and sideways and diagonally and round the back and take a completely different route. And that is much more exciting and much more conducive to being able to try out different things and that being okay. You just don't need to pick a career. There is a really, really good article, which Sammy, my colleague who's on the call today, will share a link to it in the chat. A really crucial thing to remember is that 71% of graduate jobs will not stipulate which degree discipline they need. So what they're interested in is your skills, and that is transferable between different jobs and completely different sectors even. And that's how you move around this scaffolding shaped career. And that's kind of what we're going to talk about today. So when people talk about these non-linear careers, there are some kind of crucial misconceptions. You don't have to have what's called the side hustle, which is, having a full-time job and then also somehow running your own business from your shed. You don't need to do that. Some people do, it's true, have a full-time job and also run a couple of businesses on the side, but that isn't the only way. And actually, it's not necessarily a very desirable way to build a non-linear career. You can do lots of different things, but you don't have to do them all at the same time. These are the two main ways on the slide now in which you can create your non-linear career. So there's the one job at a time approach to a non-linear career. So that's about moving between job roles, maybe even within the same company. moving between sectors. So say if you're working in a human resources role, you might do that in an education setting, and then you might move to a construction company, or a logistics company, or a food manufacturing company, but you're still working within the same kind of job role. But then you've got retraining. So that is about doing a job and then maybe doing a course on the side in order to upskill and retrain and move across into a different career. That leads into kind of career changes where you might need to retrain, you might not, but sometimes people's priorities change and you might want to change career, do something different if the thing that you're doing isn't satisfying to you anymore. Flexible working, that's another way to kind of have a non-linear career shape. So that might be that you want to do some volunteering for something that really means a lot to you. So you might drop down your hours in order to do that. And changes in priorities. As you move through your life, your priorities might change, which means that you might try a different type of work or a different sector of work. So that's the one job at a time approach to a non-linear career. The portfolio career is the other way to do non-linear careers, and the one that people might think of more when you discuss non-linear careers. And these are very, very usual and have been for a long time in the creative industries in particular, where there's a lot of freelance work. But this is actually moving across more broadly into much wider sectors of work. So a portfolio career, if you imagine a folder with lots of different sections in it, and each section has a different job or way of earning money or way of spending your time productively. So a portfolio career is all of those things together making up your career and your working life. So that could be a combination of salaried roles, so working for 2 different companies, for instance. That could be freelancing, where you work for yourself and you get short-term contracts and work for lots of different people. The side hustle business, which is where you might have a full-time or a part-time salaried role, but you have a business that you start, usually something that you're particularly passionate about, and you start that business and you maybe build that on the side. And a lot of people start that way and then tip the balance between their full-time or part-time job and their own business till a point where their business is earning them enough money for them to do that full-time. That's one way that can work. Volunteering is in there, possibly unexpectedly for some of you, because sometimes you might find that the thing you're most passionate about maybe doesn't actually pay enough money for you to have the lifestyle that you want. And that's okay, because you might get a job that's still something that you enjoy, but isn't something that is your absolute passion, but you might want to continue doing that, and you could do that in a voluntary capacity. So it might be that you really enjoy working with children, but maybe you don't actually want to be a teacher because that isn't the lifestyle that you want. So you might volunteer with the Scouts, or you might volunteer as a mentor for disadvantaged young people, as well as whatever your paid work is. And that's a really legitimate way of still having a very satisfying career. That's still part of your career, but it's a slightly different way of achieving all of the things that you want to achieve. The final thing is something that people often do later on in their career, once they've got a good network and they're very experienced in something specific, is where they might do some consultancy. So they might work, if somebody who has been working as an accountant might offer consultancy services to charities, for instance, to offer their services to help. So that's something that can be part of someone's portfolio career. If anyone has any questions on that, then please do pop them in the chat. I will try and address those as we go through. But for now, we're going to start to look at how you actually begin with the idea of this non-linear career. So here is your first task. So get your piece of paper or your Word document, and I want you to think about what's called the miracle question. So if you could wake up tomorrow and you were 1 year post-graduation, or if you're already a graduate, a year from now, I want you to think about what that would look like. So how would you feel? Where might you be? What would you be doing with your time? What would you have accomplished in your first year after university or in the year from now? And what advice do you think you give yourself here today? So I'm going to give you a couple of minutes to think about that. Again, you don't have to share it in the chat. This is about self-reflection. If you are watching this video via the YouTube channel, then pause the video here and give yourself as much time as you need on this exercise. For those here today, I will just give you a couple of minutes to have a think about those questions. This is just a starting point, and I don't expect you to have all the answers right now, but this is just a way to begin thinking about what you might want to achieve in this first year. Just going to check the chat for questions. Okay. So the idea of asking this question is to start to get you thinking actually about what your priorities are. And we're going to reflect a bit more on that now. So when you're thinking about jobs and what you kind of want to do in your job as soon as you graduate, I want you to think about what is most important to you. And it would be great if you were happy to share your top 3 in the chat so we can get an idea of what people are thinking. And this is completely non-judgmental. I'm not going to read out names or anything like that. But if you feel happy to, if you could share the things that are most important to you in a job and pop those in the chat for me, that would be great. I'll start. And for me, a sense of achievement, brilliant colleagues, and actually the salary that I'm being paid, they're important factors for me because I have a mortgage to pay. Great. So some ideas that are coming through from people in the chat: salary, flexibility, location, autonomy. Yeah, sense of achievement and the salary. Stability, financial independence, intellectual stimulation, flexibility, colleagues, moral purpose, structure, a sense of achievement, the salary, location. Yes, that's particularly at this point in your career, that can be a really important driver. Moral purpose, colleagues, sense of achievement, travel, flexibility. Yeah, a few people putting travel. That's really interesting. So I think one thing that's particularly interesting about this is how different everybody's priorities are. And thank you all for being so honest about what you feel is most important to you. And definitely write those down. Oh, connected, fulfilled, and a sense of progression. Yeah, that's a good one. So what I would say is write down on your piece of paper or in your Word document where you'd already started some answers to the miracle question. If you add these in as well, because these will help you to really sort of consider what a good opportunity is for you. Because what you can hopefully see from the fact that everyone has chosen a different combination, absolutely everybody has chosen a different combination of things that are most important to them. And obviously this is a short list, you know, there might be other things that are not on the list that might be important to you. So everybody's priorities are different. And these priorities here are important filters to use when you're looking at graduate jobs. Keep in mind when you're searching for jobs and when you're having interviews, think about these things that are important to you and use these as the basis of questions that you ask in that interview process. But aside from the fact that everyone's chosen something totally different and therefore everyone's priorities are different, the other thing that you might notice from these things that are important to you, none of these things here are specific to any one job or any one sector. So that hopefully will show you that actually it's possible for you to have a fulfilling, satisfying, rewarding career that enables you to live the life that you want to live, but while working in lots of different job roles. And also that first job role that you have doesn't actually have to be in a specific sector or even doing a specific job role. If the things that are most important to you are here in this list, they're not specific to any particular job. So it doesn't mean that it doesn't matter. There'll be lots of jobs that you might feel aren't for you, and that's absolutely fine. But this approach to working and this approach to job search, thinking and focusing on what's actually important to you, sets you up really well for a non-linear career. And I'm going to give you a worked example. So, quick game. This is a job that I had when I was not very long out of university. So, my job title was an operations account executive. So, without going on LinkedIn and looking me up, in the chat, can you put your best guess for what sector you think I was working in, and which Microsoft Office application do you think I used the most in that job? So that's going to give you an idea of what sector I was in and what I actually did. So best guesses in the chat, please. What sector was I working in when I was an operations account executive? I'm looking forward to seeing these. Okay. So far, we've got finance and Excel. Not sure of the sector, but I'll say Excel. Working in business, Excel. Logistics and PowerPoint. Banking, catering, Excel. Logistics, Excel. Business, PowerPoint. Education, interesting. Red herring. That's very interesting. Okay. So a lot of people thought Excel. Correct. Excel was definitely the thing that I used the most in that job. But a few people said business, which is a little bit broad, but no one got it. So actually, when I was an operations account executive, I was on a multinational recruitment company graduate scheme. It was a job that role was one that I didn't apply for. It was created for me after I took on a small project and showed that I had some very specific skills. And basically, it allowed me to take on more of the part of my job that I was best at, that met a business need. It gave me experience in strategic thinking that I still use years and years later. And it gave me exposure to people across the business, many of whom I'm still in touch with, because as an operations account executive, I had to deal with and kind of manage account managers who were often managing directors of different parts of the recruitment business. So it gave me incredible exposure as part of my job role. And what's really important to know about this is that this is the concept of career management that works really well with this non-linear career. And it's about saying yes to opportunities and finding out what you enjoy the most or find the most satisfying and seeking out ways to do that more. And very often, if you demonstrate that you are particularly good at something, then those opportunities will be created for you. But you just ask and you go and do things that you're really good at, find those little tasks that need doing. And it is about the tasks that you do and not the title. So the skills that I gained as an operations account executive, the world's most ambiguous job title, actually then were useful in all sorts of different roles that I've done since then. So moving on, if we're thinking then about your career progression, so we're thinking then about that opportunity that presented itself where I was a recruitment consultant and then suddenly was an operations account executive. Who influences your career progression? So is it colleagues? Is it clients that you work with? People might say potentially that it's your managers that influence your career progression. But no, it's not. It's you. And you are the person who has the most influence on your career progression. Yes, okay, there might be a promotion opportunity that's advertised that you could go for, but it's you that chooses to go for it. So your career progression is actually in your hands, and it's very much about you managing your own career and taking those opportunities to build it and focusing on those things that are important to you and the skills that you gain that you can transfer to different areas of work. And that's what helps you to manage your career. So here we go. Career management, also known as making your own luck. So just like I did when I was an operations account executive, I did something, I did it really well and I enjoyed it. So I found a way to do it more, and then it was noticed and a job was created for me. But that isn't always the way that it works. So there are lots of different things that you can do to take control of your own career management from your very first graduate role. So CPD, which is continuing professional development. CPD is on offer with all jobs to some extent or another. But it's about seeking out the things that really interest you. And some of it will be compulsory that you'll need to do. So go ahead and do that. Any CPD that's free, do that. And then there may be a training budget, particularly if you're a graduate trainee or a new graduate in a new role. There may well be opportunities for training, and that's definitely something to ask about both at interview, but also when you start in your job. Find out what it is that you are, maybe where your gaps are, because as a new graduate, it's very usual to have gaps. You know, they know when they're taking on a graduate that they're not going to have somebody who knows everything. So be honest and say, actually, I've identified that this is a bit of a gap for me. Is there any training that you can send me on to help me with that? And you never know who you might meet at that training or what you might learn at that training, which might give you a new priority or might give you a new area of expertise, which could lead you to a slightly different path on your non-linear career journey. That works straight into networking. So networking, you're doing it already. Everyone that you met at university is part of your network. So it's not about being scared to start networking. You're already doing it. You're doing it today. There's myself and there are a couple of career service colleagues on the call today, and you can connect with us all on LinkedIn straight away after this session, and you have expanded your network by 4 people and all of the people that we're connected to, which is probably runs into the thousands. So building a network, everyone that you meet professionally or through any volunteering that you do, connect them on LinkedIn, stay in touch with them. You never know what opportunities might present themselves through staying in touch with people. So that's a great way to manage your career and to take advantage of opportunities that might present themselves. Building relationships with managers and colleagues. As you can see from my example, that's how I made my own luck and got myself a new job role that was really satisfying. So building those relationships and letting people know what you enjoy. You know, if there's a project that you're working on that you really like doing, tell people that you're really enjoying it and that you'd like to help out with something similar if the opportunity rises. Keeping in touch like that with colleagues and sharing what you're enjoying and asking to be involved with things is a really good way to manage your career. So professional bodies, linking in with professional bodies for whichever area of work you happen to be in, or the ones that you aspire to be in, is a really good way of making sure that you're fully up to date with what's happening in your sector, and any kind of new developments in your sector where you could take advantage of those opportunities. I've mentioned LinkedIn. It's really where it's at. You need to be on LinkedIn. We've got loads of support on the Career Service website, and we can pop a link in the chat to our LinkedIn pages that will take you through making a LinkedIn profile, and if you've already got one, making the most of it. So that's a really important one. Getting involved in working groups at your place of work. If there's a new project or something to be implemented and there's an opportunity to join a working group, get on it, because you'll meet people from across the organisation. Same with staff networks, whether that's a professional one or whether it's something like the LGBTQ staff network, for instance, or if there's a staff network for members of staff who are from Black and Asian and minority ethnic groups, or disabled members of staff. Get involved in those staff networks, because it's a good way both to kind of understand about what support there is out there for you, because there's generally a lot, but also to meet people from across the business and understand more about opportunities. Definitely ask all the time about development and training, as I said at the beginning. And the final thing is about headhunting, and that's something that might happen to you when you sort of progress in your career, particularly if you're very active on LinkedIn. You might get headhunted, which is where a recruiter is looking for somebody with a particular set of expertise, and you'll find yourself with a message in your LinkedIn inbox from a recruiter saying, we've looked at your profile and we can see that you have skills in this area. Would you be interested in having a chat about a new opportunity? They're not always very personalized. Sometimes recruiters send them out to lots of people, so it doesn't mean initially that, yes, you can hand your notice in your job. Please don't do that. But it's a way of recruiters finding you. So being on LinkedIn and commenting on things and being really visible and talking about your skills and achievements and what you're doing is a way to stand out to recruiters and to have opportunities come to you. And always weigh those up and see if it's something that you do want to pursue, because sometimes that non-linear career path can come out of somewhere quite unexpected. If anyone has any questions on any of that, remember to please put questions in the chat and I will absolutely answer them. So coming in now to our equality, diversity and inclusion, I mentioned it briefly before. It's really important that we acknowledge that we know that not all students and graduates will have had the same experience of accessing both the career support or recruitment processes. And we are here to support you however you identify. We have information on our web pages, which you can see there under help and advice and then equality and diversity. It's really worth saying that, as I mentioned before, a lot of companies are putting a lot of effort and resource into supporting the recruitment and progression of a more diverse workforce. So it's very much about seeking out those types of opportunities. There are a number of graduate employers, for instance, who have identified that they lack kind of gender or ethnic diversity within their senior management positions. So they have management acceleration programs for graduates who come from those underrepresented groups. So it's about seeing if there's anything like that on offer, and taking advantage of those opportunities in order to further your own career. And there's more information on that on those web pages there. Oh, thank you, Sammy. So Sammy's just put the link to the equality and diversity pages into the chat, so you can access that on there. So one of the other events that we have coming up during the Future Week, the final year Future Week, is the Future Week Fair, which is on Thursday. And this is just a plug for that, basically. And everything that we've talked about in terms of a non-linear career where you are led more by what interests you the most, what's important to you, and the fact that you don't need to choose something, that you can be open to different opportunities, because they will all teach you skills that you'll be able to then transfer to something different. So a really good way to do this is to have a really open mind when researching your options. A great way to go about it on Thursday is, well, today, hopefully, if you go and register for the Future Week Fair as an event, you will then be able to book 10-minute slots to speak to graduate employers. And a massive benefit of doing it virtually as opposed to being in a big room is that you can guarantee that one-on-one time with those employers. And that's something that's a great advantage for you, really. So you can look on Career Connect at which employers are coming, and you can see what types of opportunities they are offering. And I would say to have a really open mind when you are considering those opportunities and thinking hard about which of those employers you want to talk to and what kind of questions you've got. You know, if flexibility, if travel is important to you, then research that employer. Is it likely that those things will be available to you if you went to work for them? I just had a question come through. Oh, thank you. That Sammy has put a link in the chat, which will take you through to registering for the Future Week Fair. So if you haven't done that already, I would really urge you to do so. And as I say, do that and register to speak to employers with a really open mind about what they might be able to offer you, what you might be able to offer them. Today is the first day of final year Future Week. So there are loads and loads of events going on this week. Hopefully this one has proved interesting and useful to you. And we'll have some questions and answers in a minute if anyone has them. But I really would urge you to look at the rest of the programme for this week and to make the most of this opportunity. You know, my colleagues Jenny and Sammy have put together a fantastic programme. We've got employers coming later in the week so that you can talk to them. And it's a really good idea to get as involved as you can in this week. We've had a question come through the chat, which is, what kind of questions would be good to ask the employers at the fair? That's a great question. So what I would advise you to do is to read all of the information that the employers have provided on Career Connect and also have a little look around their website so that you're not asking something that's really obvious. But as we've talked about before, maybe good questions to ask are around their training offer. So what kind of training is on offer for their graduates? Asking questions around career progression. So what do graduates tend to go on to do after their first graduate role? Those are all good questions to ask. You can also ask about what they look for in a graduate trainee and a graduate applicant. Something else that's good that would help you to focus in on those things that are most important to you are asking questions about the company culture. Because very often you can have a job role that looks very similar on paper. So the job descriptions look really similar, the entry requirements are really similar. And what will make those jobs different is what the company culture is like. So asking the representative of the company, how would you describe the company culture, will give you a really, really good idea about whether that's somewhere that you might fit in or not. So that's probably a good place to start. Hopefully that answered your question. Does anyone else have anything that they want to ask at the moment? Okay, so what I would just like to do is to get your feedback on how you have felt about this session. And so in the chat, I'd like you can either send them directly to me, or you can make them public. That's fine, I don't mind which. It's called 2 stars and a question mark. And can you type 2 things that you've learned today that you didn't know before, and 1 thing that you'd either wish I'd included or something that you still have a question about that I might be able to answer. I'll give you a moment to do that. And we have a winner for the person who was first to request me to follow them on LinkedIn. So congratulations. I have sent you a message on LinkedIn, and that's how quick networking is. So in the chat. Okay. So that's great that someone's learned what they're looking for in a career and thought about their goals. Do employers often do part-time or work flexible hours? That's an interesting question. Increasingly, employers now are looking at flexible working. Sort of since the COVID-19 pandemic, a lot of employers have realised that people are just as, if not more, productive when they're working at home. So a lot of employers will have a kind of flexible working policy that is open to everybody. What you might find is that there is an initial period in your contract where you have to work whatever your normal hours are, and then you become eligible to request flexible working, so a reduction in hours or flexible hours. But other companies will have a flexible working policy right from the outset. So often that will be what's called flexi time, where you'll have a certain number of hours that you have to work in a week, but how you do that is kind of up to you. So you might work, say, a Monday and Tuesday, really long days, and then shorter days in the rest of the week. Or you might work slightly longer days through Monday to Friday, and then have an early finish on a Friday. So there are lots of different ways that companies organise flexible working. It's not generally something to discuss at this stage necessarily. If it's something that's particularly important to you and it's an absolute deal breaker, then you could do. But generally, that's something that you discuss further on into the recruitment process. But you have, the only exception to that is if you are a disabled candidate and working reduced hours is a reasonable adjustment that you would request on those grounds, then employers have to take that into consideration. But if that does apply to you, you can book a careers appointment with either myself or my colleague Delia Goodwin. We both offer extended appointments for disabled students of an hour, and you can book those through Career Connect if you wanted to discuss that. I hope that answered your question. So another question that's come through is, how active should you be on LinkedIn in terms of making posts better? That's such a great question. Now, you have to kind of get a balance, and it is a bit of a personal thing. But if you're kind of regularly posting, you know, some sort of every week, posting something or commenting on something, it's more about consistency. So rather than commenting on like everything for 2 days and then not doing anything for 3 months, it will be better to do things regularly. But it's very much about how you want to use it and how actively you are sort of seeking work at this point and how visible you want to be. But it's more about kind of your consistency. And I would sort of check your messages, you know, every few days in case people have wanted to connect with you, or somebody sent you a message asking you about something or has commented on you. So it's very much up to you. You know, don't let it take over your life. It's very important to keep balance and not be answering things at you know, silly times of the night. But yeah, it's more about kind of the regularity. So hopefully that answered that one. Okay, in order to connect with someone on LinkedIn, is it better to include a message as well? Yes, absolutely, 100%. So if it's someone that you already have a connection to, then just a quick note to say, hi, you know, I met you when I was doing my virtual internship. It will be great to connect. Or if it's someone that you don't know, if you've got someone in common, you could reference that. Or if it's someone that where it's a company that you're really interested in working for or finding out more about, then just put that. Just say, you know, I'm really interested in things that you've been posting. This is an area of interest for me. It would be great to join your network, something like that. But yeah, you're much more likely to be accepted if you include a note as well, particularly if someone that you don't know. Next question is, it's great that you've learnt about how to look at your career differently and keep options open. So a question here, when you change career sectors, how do you apply for a job when you have no experience in it? Okay, that's interesting. That's about defining what you mean by have no experience. So you wouldn't generally apply for a job where you've got no experience at all. You look at the job that you've been doing at the moment and see where those transferable skills are. So, you know, they might want project management experience, for instance. Now, you might have done project management in construction and you're looking for a job in healthcare. But if it's project management skills, then they will be transferable. The other way is when we were talking about those non-linear careers and maybe doing some voluntary work, or something with reducing your hours in your current job and doing some work in a slightly different sector, kind of on a part-time or freelance basis to build your experience. That's kind of how you do it. So it's about thinking, right, I want to change career in this direction. What am I missing and how can I get that? And it might be finding an opportunity within your current employer where you can either get some training or get involved in a project that would enable you to build the skills that you want for your next career move, or it's about looking for that outside of your current employment. I hope that made sense. Please do message again if you need me to clarify a little bit more. So the next thing, so 2 things that have been learned are planning careers around tasks that you like doing and networking as part of career management. Something that you want to learn more is for international students, integrating visa and residence requirements into career management. Yeah, that is obviously a consideration. We've got the new graduate route. Sammy or Jenny, my colleagues who are on at the moment, could hopefully put a link in the chat into our career service website. We've got a page for international students, which does give some advice on visas, and also our passport career subscription, which is something that you can sign up for, which gives advice, and any student or graduate can sign up for that. It gives advice on working in countries other than the UK. But if you were an international student who wanted to remain working in the UK, oh, thank you, Sammy, that's in there now. And in terms of visa and residence requirements, it is definitely about making sure that if you need sponsorship, that the company you're applying to is on the sponsor register. But it's best if you just check out that link, and if you need some more advice, then you can book an appointment with a careers consultant for that. Good, my previous answer made sense. Marvelous. There's been some great questions that have come through now. Is there anything else that anyone would like me to cover? Please pop it in the chat and I'd be more than happy to do that. Stop that share there. Okay. So unless there are any final questions, if there's anything that you wanted to ask, then please feel free to stay behind. I'm going to stop the recording now.